Hello friends, we're rapidly approaching the date of October 7th, and it's the second anniversary of the attack by Hamas on the various kibbutz surrounding Gaza. And the multiple deaths and the hostage taking and all of that violence. And we're going to see pictures of that once again because it's the second anniversary. And we're also then going to see multiple pictures of the retaliation by the army of the State of Israel. And we're going to see and hear how many tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed. And we wonder, where is it all going? And we will hear also of demonstrations on our universities, Canadian universities, of rallies that are pro-Israel under its present leadership and pro-Palestinians. And in McGill, Montreal, they've had to disallow any possible demonstrations on that subject on its grounds, because the two groups would come together and shout hatred and obscenities at each other and even throw things at each other. Police had to be there to just try to reestablish the minimum of order. And we wonder where it's all going. And even here in Winnipeg, there's been evidence of anti-Semitism. People on the street insulted, lambasted with words of hatred. There's been swastikas painted on synagogue walls. And there's also been incidences, real incidences, again by word and action, of hatred of Muslims, Islamophobia. And we wonder, where is this all going? And we perhaps even wonder, well, who's right, who's wrong? Or who's more right or more wrong? I remember hearing of it was a phrase by Stalin who caused the death of hundreds of thousands of his fellow citizens. Think of the Ukrainian Holodomor. And it is reported that he once said, if I kill one person, that's murder. If I kill 1 million people, that's a bit of statistical information. The whole sense of becoming desensitized to hatred, to division, to violence, to war, to prejudice, of becoming desensitized to the other human being, far away from us or right beside us. And that's something that we really have to consider, how easily we can get desensitized and choose sides and forget that neighbors are brothers and sisters. I was thinking of that, like let's say here in Winnipeg. Do we simply shut up, not have those conversations, perhaps not even have the debates, but just shut ourselves, each within our own silo of hatred and misunderstanding and ignorance? Or do we venture out? Let's say a household of Catholics living next to a household of Jewish people. Beyond just the fact of urban anonymity, Do we reach out to one another? Do we try to learn about one another? How many kids do they have? Where do they work? What's their life like? Neighbors. On the way to becoming perhaps, hopefully, friends. And if Gaza and Israel and Palestinians and the Jewish people comes up, do we try to listen to the other person, firstly, with respect, basic human respect, and try to see not so much where they're coming from, but how they're being affected by all of this. And then perhaps to search together how to continue being neighbors and brothers and friends. But coming back to statistics, okay, there's the statistics about Israel and Gaza. But do we have in the back of our head the statistics about Ukraine and Russia? Do we have in the back of our head the statistics about how many tens and hundreds of thousands of people in eastern Congo are having to become refugees in neighboring countries, are being killed? A recent massacre, 60 people in a church by a militia. Every woman abused in that whole region of eastern Congo. And that for the sake of rare metals, for the sake of precious metals. And do we even have a sense of how many hundreds of thousands? It's actually 1.2, 1.3 million people in Darfur, a region of Sudan, that have been displaced, and civil war is just wrecking everything in that country. Perhaps we don't even know where Sudan is, but no. And if we have a blip of information across our TV, our computer screen, our cell phone, I'll bet it just goes in, out, because we've become so desensitized to our common humanity. And so what do we do? Well, obviously, we have to pray for peace. And the popes, all the popes, throughout the years, and there's conflict all the time, have repeatedly asked us to pray for suffering humanity, to pray for the innocent victims, especially civilians, of all those wars that we don't even remember about anymore. So, to pray for peace, but also to become actively peacemakers. And I think, if I can use the example of, Catholic family, Jewish family, I think peacemakers is actually caring about what's happening to their 16-year-old son who's in a bit of trouble, or to their 80-year-old mother who's suffering cancer. And prayer and compassion and walking with accompaniment, being peacemakers in very concrete ways, here and now. Otherwise, we wander into despair, or worse, we travel through being so desensitized that another human being really is just a statistic for us. even if they're living right beside us. And so yes, pray for peace, to work for peace, but also I'm going to say to work to oppose that which brings that desensitization. And in our world, and I think we've seen an increase in this, it's because of social media. Now, I'm not a dinosaur, and I'm not saying, break your cell phones. I'm not saying that. But as with anything in our world, it can bring good or it can bring bad. It can bring great good or it can bring great evil, depending on what's in the heart of the person who uses it. And I believe that our overdependence, our turning to our cell phones before we turn to our neighbor, and turning to Facebooks, websites, podcasts, all of that, not to know, but to pump up our emotions. And so often then they become emotions of hatred, emotions of revilement. We need to get individually and societally a hold of that whole world that is not of so much communication as formation of a culture of desensitization. And so next month I'd like to bring you some of my thoughts on that whole question of social media, of the formation by big business, sure, but also by our participation in it, each and every one of us, of our ways of communication, social media, yes, TV, all the other ways, but especially digital world, how it contributes to our desensitization. I'm going to say, as a Christian, walking away from Christ by walking away from our brothers and sisters. Thank you.